Good morning, everybody. How's everyone?
Great.
Good weekend. My name is Taj, for those of you who don't know me. So what I did was I decided to pick a dish that was very contemporary during the Revolutionary period, during the Revolution. And what I chose to make was, and to research on, was a dish that was served in local taverns. So tavern food. And we know what a lot of the big significance was of these taverns. This is where a lot of political ideas were being formed. A lot of things were happening during this time frame for our country and the future of our country. The first thing I want to talk about is about this tavern type of food. What type of food was it? What type of setting were we in during this time? The particular tavern that I chose to find a recipe for was the City Tavern in Philadelphia. And the City Tavern is a very famous tavern, still around today. It was first founded in 1773. And it's a different kind of tavern. Prior to that, most taverns were just, places of eating established. People did go there for social things and also political things, but there were a lot of opinions being floated around during that time in those type of taverns. The City Tavern and others like it were actually subscription taverns, where they were built on subscription, meaning that people got together and decided, we're going to build a tavern, and we're going to have it for ourselves. So it became kind of like exclusive clubs, sort of, where they could talk about their own same political ideals. And they were built by donations from those members. The taverns were typically built like their homes for comfortability. Mostly males were in those taverns also too as well. So what I chose was a hot potato salad. It would be served hot. They used Yukon potatoes. There's chives in it. There's coarse salt, also coarse ground pepper in it, and little red wine, oil, and vinegar, and also some beef stock also too. I just put a very minimal amount because that just really made it extremely soft, so I didn't want to have that much consistency. And this is a dish where they use Yukon potatoes. Just think about the ingredients of the potato itself. It's such a humble vegetable and such humble beginnings, and who would ever imagine that this would fuel a revolution? And here we are today, a couple hundred years later, and we're going to try it today to see what these guys were eating on a regular basis. So what they used was these Yukon potatoes. Obviously they were grown here in America, and then they were transported over to Europe. And this particular recipe was created or founded upon or inspired by a lady. Her name was Magdalena Kahn. She was the daughter of another gentleman, Johannes Kahn, who was one of the first people who came over here to settle in the New World in the Utopian colony at that time. So this is what her recipe is based on, or this recipe that the City Tavern has. So they came from Germany, and they immigrated here around 1699. So the potato went from here to Germany to Europe, and then it came back. And particularly, I think they chose the Yukon potato, because you can choose other types of potatoes, obviously, that would grow, but it was a hardy potato grown in these climates, so it was a good potato to use, and it is quite tasty. So basically what you would do with this ingredients is that you would boil the potatoes to a certain consistency, slice them up, and then you would add the oil and vinegar, and also the chives, and the salt, and all those kind of things. And just toss it up, and it was going to be served warm. Now, this is a dish that had no socio or economic boundaries. Whether you were poor, whether you were rich, you could eat this dish in the tavern, particularly the City Tavern, this particular recipe either. So imagine the atmosphere that you come into. It's Philadelphia, it's like 1773, 1774. The revolution is just kicking up, everything. I mean, there's a lot of activity in Philadelphia. You're hungry, and you're also concerned about what's going on in what's going on in the political future of our country. And so you're going to go to the City Tavern, and that's where you're going to discuss with possibly even the founders, many of the founders of the Constitution itself. They all met there and talked about these things and how to do things. So you could be sitting right next to them. You come inside, a little smoky, but it smells good. You smell roast beef, you smell soups, and potato salad, and it's like a home. And so you come inside, you sit down, and this is the type of meal that you can eat. And whether, like I said, if you're poor or rich, you could afford definitely to eat hot potato salad. So what they would do is they would usually cooked over hearths. Okay, there would be a kitchen back in there with a hearth, and then they would use stoneware, flatware for the types of dishes to cook in. It would be cooked over the hearth, and then typically it would be served on wooden plates or what they call trenches. And a lot of times people shared a wooden plate. And they had wooden spoons, wooden forks, and also pewter too as well, little two-time forks. As the revolution kicked up, a lot of that pewter and all of that metal was melted down to make bullets for the Revolutionary War too as well. So you would have salt too. Typically you would have salt and coarse ground pepper on the table too, but salt was not something that like how we use it now. It's all ground fine, very good, easy ingredient to use. Back then, they'd actually have to grind the salt right there before they put it in the dish, and then it would sit on the box on the table there. So this is the dish that I chose. I thought it was very significant because of the way that it basically fueled the revolution.